All right, welcome to day 10 of Writing the Good Life. This is an exciting one, and it's interesting that we didn't start this week in this section of the course with the beginning of this book, and we dove into chapter 1 of this book because I think it's actually more interesting to start where you are with the dashboard and then think about the problems that you have, and then really look at how we're going to approach and solve those problems. So the frame here, kind of moving back, Bill Burnett and Evans say that this is on page XVI, what is that, 16 of the introduction, in italics. A well-designed life is a life that is generative. It is constantly creative, productive, changing, evolving, and there's always the possibility of a surprise. They basically say, and I fell in love with this book probably when I read that they when they started going into the dysfunctional beliefs, that we have these dysfunctional beliefs or myths that so many people believe that get in the way of us having the life that we want. It's kind of unsurfacing or uncovering the beliefs that get in the way of what we actually want, or confuse us in thinking that we want things in ways that we might not actually want. And the main one is that and there's a lot of research on this, we think that if we get successful, then we'll be happy. When honestly, it usually works the other way around, that when we work on our happiness, then we are successful, and we're less interested in that success the more happy we get and the more that success starts to shift and change. So today, what we're really getting familiar with are the 5 aspects of design thinking. I also love What Do We Know, this section, when they say, as teachers, we have always guaranteed our students office hours for life. I love that. I'm definitely extending that to anyone that takes the workshop, and to all my students, because partially I love hearing from students a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years after teaching them, because not only am I invested in their progress, but it's awesome to see all the different twists and turns that life takes that no one really expects. So if you go into the life design process with this knowledge that the opportunities that arise will come from areas that you don't expect, it's just so much more liberating than trying to get something to work and trying to figure it out, and instead kind of embracing what's happening as you're going through it. So they basically say that there are many versions of you, and they are all right. I can't figure it out for you. This book can't figure it out for you. And in some ways, you can't figure it out for you, but you can enjoy the process of figuring out as you go. And this is the sense of design thinking. So design thinking is from the Stanford Design Lab as applied to life design. Basically, they say that this course is for helping people figure out what they want to be when they grow up, since most of us, let's be real, are still in that process of figuring out what you want to be when you grow up or as you're growing up. There's really 5 of these design thinking mindsets that I want to highlight in order to think like a designer. There's basically 5 mindsets that help you move forward. They are curiosity, a bias to action, reframing, awareness, and radical collaboration. I'm going to go over what these 5 are and then ask you to kind of identify which ones you identify with the most. So which ones seem like the best to you, and then also which ones would you like to work on, or which do you feel like are the ones that you could most profitably employ to improve as you move forward. And I'll give you some of my answers personally to walk us through that, but this ideally is for you to identify what these are in your own words, in your notes, so that you have them and you can refer back to them, and then identify which ones you really underline and really jive with, and which ones you want to work on more. Okay, so they are: curiosity speaks for itself, but in a really interesting way. They ask you to be curious, but this should be curious about the big questions. And they do say, and this is why I think this is a really philosophical activity and it really corresponds with a lot of the deep work we're doing, Doing this well involves the willingness to ask big questions about what matters. This is a process of self-discovery that can be kind of unsettling and disturbing in some ways. So it is important that Julia Cameron's idea on the creative contract, that you're really taking care of yourself as you go into this with as much energy as you can, so that you can maintain a sense of forward progress, which is interesting. I want to be curious about whether or not forward progress is actually a thing. It might actually be lateral progress, or maybe not forward progress, or maybe not progress at all. Maybe it's more a sense of acceptance and presencing for the life that I'm leading. That's kind of what I mean by curiosity and what they mean by curiosity. We want to make sure that we're asking good generative questions, that our questions aren't leading us down too small of a hole, like, how can I get more plays on Spotify? A better curious question is, why do I want more plays on Spotify? Do extra plays on Spotify actually guarantee any kind of success? What kinds of success would that generate? What would I hope the plays on Spotify would get me? Is there another way of getting that? You see the idea. Okay, number 2 is a bias to action. Good designers don't think about things, or they do, but only for so long, because thinking about things can drive us crazy. Instead, you try stuff. You build a minimum viable product. You build an experience. You build a conversation. You build something that helps you identify or give you some intel, some intelligence on maybe where you're going, or a new direction, or what you can learn from thinking, if it's this, this, or this, how can I try each of those things to figure out which one makes the most sense? So bias to action, you try stuff, you build stuff, you learn from that process. Reframing is a way of thinking again about the big questions. We already said one of these reframes, like, it's not getting successful in order to be happy, it's being happy in order to be successful. Or the one I use with a lot of my students in CSU in college, I say, change your verb and you change your life. If you really believe that you don't have to do this, you get to do it. It is an opportunity and a blessing to be able to do it. So you don't have to do this, you get to. And if you really feel that, reframe that kind of way you're thinking about problems. That can be incredibly helpful. And so this is connected with curiosity, whether or not you're really thinking about things in the right way, or at least in the most generative, opening way. And then 4th, awareness is not only awareness of where we are, but awareness of the process. So we're thinking journey before destination, and we're going to come back to this. This is a key aspect of this entire course layout. The process that we're going on is more important to engage in that process than to get to a desired outcome. As soon as we start trying to get to this point, we're limiting our scope, and we might be shutting down potential options or visions of where we could be going. And it's more important to, and also we very well may fail to get to this point. And if we're judging our success based on us getting to this point, it's a more difficult, sustainable proposition than just being aware of the process and beginning to build failure immunity, take risks, be okay with things failing. Really opens up a lot in this sense. And then the last one is radical collaboration. This is the ability to ask for help, or to see that our lives and our projects are not just us working alone, they're really us working with other people, ideally people that we want to learn more about, or people that we care about, or people that we want to help because we respect and admire what they're doing. That's how a lot of networking and mentorship goes. You really are invested in someone else because you appreciate, respect, admire them, in hopes that they're appreciating, respecting, admiring your work, which they probably will if you're working on something that they also believe in, which is connected to the big goals that we're going to be developing and that we've already started to develop in this course. So these are the 5 design thinking mindsets. I think these are the cool, maybe not the coolest, but a pretty darn cool way to frame the problem of life design and how to move forward in a way when we don't necessarily know where we're going, which we're going to pick up for the next week and next module on wayfinding. So of all of these, which speak to you the most? Which of them seem really, which that you are easy or that you already do? And which of them would you like to dedicate more time to consciously develop? I know for me, I really appreciate the awareness and curiosity are the two that I'm good at. And the two that I want to do more of are bias to action and radical collaboration, but I'm going to put a pin in radical collaboration for me. I feel like if I got better at asking for help and really seeing my projects as collaborative endeavors instead of just mine, that would really open up a lot for what I'm doing. So, hope this helps, and I hope by now, I know this is a scattered way of reading this book, that you're beginning to get excited about developing a life for greater coherence between who you are, what you believe, and what you do, and figuring out what you're doing, what you're going to be when you grow up again and again and again, using these design thinking mindsets. Hope this helps, and we'll see you tomorrow.